started off by sanding down my preferred piece of wood. I chose basswood. It's what I use typically for wood burning. All right, the first thing you want to do is tape down your design. Doing this process, it helps keep the design stationary. That way when you're tracing it, it doesn't move around. All right, now we're going to use a piece of graphite paper, and you want to check both sides of the graphite paper. The darker side of the graphite paper has the graphite on it, so therefore that side will be facing towards the wood. All right, what I'm doing here is going back over the design. That way it transfers to the wood itself. All right, now make sure when you're tracing your stencil, you're not putting too much pressure. There will be an example at the end of the video. What I'm doing here, I want to lift the stencil up and the graphite paper to make sure my stencil did transfer. And it did. So that's good. All right, I'm going to continue to trace the rest of the letters. Not the, not the letters, the paw print. Jeez. It's always a good idea too, whenever you're done with your stencil, to save it. And also save the graphite paper. Yeah, I've saved graphite paper like 35 times already. That's alright. Yeah, keep it. You can use it over and over again until it starts to fade out. Then you'll know it's time for a new one. Alright, now that everything's outlined, I'm going to peel it back to make sure it all transferred, and it did. And you can go ahead and peel the stencil off. Alright, what I'm doing here is an example of why you shouldn't put too much pressure when tracing your design. On this part of the paw print, I'll be using quite a bit of pressure. And the more pressure you put, the darker it's going to be. On this part, I'm not using as much pressure. All right, now I'm going to peel this back, and you'll see the difference of how much the pressure makes. And when you're like tracing a design or something using the graphite paper, it's the more pressure you put, the darker it's going to get, and then the harder it is to erase. If you have to erase it, I mean, you could still sand it off. Just use a really high grit sandpaper. But yeah, you can see I try to erase it and you can still see it, right? All right, now I'm gonna erase this one right here, and you can vaguely see it. But you can definitely tell the difference. Yeah, it's very faint. So you erase even harder on this one. All right. Then now this one again. Oh heck yeah, you can really tell a difference.